Okay, in 1970, the Russians drilled, they're called ST3 wells, an exploratory well which finally reached a staggering world record depth of 40,230 feet. Since then, Russia and their major oil company, Yukos, have quietly drilled 310 successfully deep wells, putting them into production. And last year, Russia overtook Saudi Arabia as the world's largest single oil producer and is now set to completely dominate global oil production and the sales for the next century. What they found was abiotic fuel when they got to oil, when they got to that depth. Now, please write this down, abiotic oil. It is from the chemical process that's taking place in the heart of the earth, and as a result, the textbooks on oil are going to have to be rewritten because it is not a fossil fuel, and there is no such thing as peak oil, and the shallow oil wells of Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Mexico are replenishing from these deep sources. Now, Russia had sense enough, and please notice this word, it's emphatic. Russia had sense enough to drill their coal SG3 well on the land, not in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, what is happening in the Gulf of Mexico? I contacted Mr. X, and he said, here's what happened. What I found out is frightening. I mean, it scares me. It appears that British Petroleum, BP, not an American oil company, it should have never been allowed to take place. Our government made a horrible mistake. They allowed British Petroleum to try to do what Russia did and drill a super deep well, not on land, but you stupid, BP was so stupid as to try drilling in the ocean, offshore, on a floating platform. Are you catching all of these words? This platform is controlled and kept in place by sophisticated GPS equipment in the Gulf of Mexico in water that's 5,000 feet deep.
Yeah, it's got big robotically controlled jets and propellers, just like cruise ships have to keep them from rocking. It has a similar system. It's firing. I think they call it an azipod system to keep it in place.
Yes. Now keep in mind, 1 mile is 5,280. They went down 5,000 feet in water, and then they began their drilling, and here's the depth they went to. This is right from BP's. Now, there are some people in BP that are so concerned for human beings and love our nation to the point that they have told me the story. I had 2 BP informants along with my Mr. X of the Energy Non-Crisis. Now, they drilled between 25 and 30,000 feet deep in 5,000-foot water. That means that they went somewhere between 30 and 30,000 feet. This is what is called a super deep well. They hit something so catastrophic and unexpected that they could not contain it.
And the news has now admitted that 3 hours before, they had executives and engineers and petroleum geologists rushing out there on helicopters because they knew something was about to happen.
That's exactly right, and it did, except it was much worse than they ever thought for. Now, let me state very emphatically, this positively is not a conspiracy. They did not intend for this to happen. This is an accident. They hit a strata of oil at such high pressure that it burst all of their safety valves. The pressure behind the oil is so high that it destroyed the maximum efforts of human science to contain it. And at Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, for instance, the oil is in the ground at approximately 1,500 pounds of natural artesian pressure. And when I was chaplain there, I watched many oil wells being brought in. The very first thing that they gave in an oil well at Prudhoe Bay was the flow rate of the wellhead. The second thing they would always give immediately is the pressure, the artesian pressure coming up with that oil. Have you ever noticed, and now you can think of this for a moment, Alex, nowhere, no media, nobody has told anything about the well.
No, that is the first thing they do is they get a well reading on its pressure, and we haven't heard what pressure it's coming out.
They don't dare tell what pressure it came out because in the Gulf of Mexico, the BP oil well, what they have announced is so different than what really is.
But see, that fits in with the fact that there's other fissures miles away that it's coming up with such pressure, like a water hose going into the dirt can burrow. It's coming up from below and blasting up almost like a volcano, creating other fissures. But we're going to find out from a fellow that says they're a petroleum geologist just in a moment. But please continue, Lindsey.
Yes, keep in mind that the tire on your automobile is 35 pounds per square inch approximately. If you were driving a big tractor-trailer rig, you'd have 100 pounds per square inch, PSI. A reliable source estimated to me with BP that the Gulf of Mexico oil gusher hit a wellhead pressure between, you ready? I mean, this is astronomical. They hit a wellhead pressure of somewhere between 20,000 and 70,000 pounds per square inch. This is beyond human technology to contain it. There are many safety devices on that well. It blew every single one of them.
Is that why the government's now saying they may use a nuke on it?
Well, we'll get to the nuke in a little bit, but I need to give some of the other details first, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what this man said to me is the only thing can be done about it. Now, these safety devices, there's one of them down there called a fail-safe valve. Anybody in the oil business will recognize this immediately. The fail-safe valve is the one that's supposed to hold if everything else holds and all of the other safety devices blow. This one is supposed to hold. This is what I'm about to give right now. Has never been told anywhere, and you'll never hear it unless you happen to go to the BP informant that I had, and they said to me, they said, Chaplain, there was a conversation between the worker and the foreman on the rig not long before the blast took place, and the worker said to the foreman, the fail-safe valve is warped. There is a defective in it. We've got to replace it before we go any further. The foreman on the oil platform said to the worker, we don't have time. Let's continue going. It was just after that that the Gulf of Mexico oil well flowed, and it is flowing today approximately 4 million gallons a day, along with the fissures.
Now, they have been caught. First, they said it was 5,000, then 20,000, then 100,000, then 500,000. You're saying it's millions of gallons from your BP source.
That is correct.
Well,
now, will BP be able to stop the flow of the oil? You ready? Now, this comes
well, wait, that makes sense, though, the way they're keeping the media back, boy, and being suspicious. So you're saying this is a super mega disaster?
This is a super mega disaster of something that the United States of America has never experienced and the world has never experienced. And the pressures on this well were so extreme compared to even what Russia hit years ago in that cold.
Well, I've got to say it, you know, I mean, Lindsey Williams, it does seem like America, the whole world seems like it's cursed now. All the bad things that are happening constantly.
Well, BP has tried everything. Yeah, you're right. BP has tried everything in their power to stop this well. They've used every scientific method that they can, but the truth of the matter is, this individual said to me, he said, there's only one thing that is going to stop this. And he said it's a nuclear device. But he immediately said, but. And I said, what do you mean? He said, if we angle drill and put in a nuclear device and blow what is presently there, he said, if we get success, we'll be the heroes of the world. He said, Chaplain, I am scared, and I could hear it in his voice. He said, if we explode that nuclear device and this strata of oil, which nobody has ever drilled into one with this pressure before, he said, if we fail and we rupture that strata further than what it already is, and plumes have been reported as much as 5 and 20 miles away, and I'll read them to you in just a moment or two. He said, if we rupture that strata further with that nuclear device, he said, Chaplain, I don't even want to think about it.
Well, more and more evidence does point towards abiotic oil because the old oil wells are filling back up. It is being generated. It is coming from somewhere. And of course, they do find coal that has ferns in it. It's clear that there is some oil that is produced from dead plankton and things that they find, natural gas from the petroleum geologist I've talked to out in the ocean at shallower depths that they do believe did come from rotting plant and animal life, but that there is another type of oil. Look, it's a big debate. We'll continue with Lindsey Williams, and I promise we're going to get to this fella that says he's a petroleum geologist on the other side.